Hey everyone, welcome back. So picture this. You've got the perfect, meticulously crafted project plan. It is flawless. And then, reality hits. Bam. Well, welcome to week 9. Today, we're diving deep into project monitoring, specifically focusing on progress tracking, issues, and change management. By the end of this explainer, you're going to see exactly why mastering these areas is absolutely crucial for tackling unexpected hurdles, managing massive risks, and making sure your project actually crosses the finish line in one piece. Let's get started. Here is the roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to hit 5 key stops. First up, inevitable disruption. Then, mastering the issue log, integrated change control, assessing risks and impacts, and finally, managing stakeholders. All right, let's jump right into part 1, inevitable disruption, navigating project realities. I absolutely love this analogy. One metaphor for the change process is that it is like dropping a large rock in a pond. The waves reach across the entire surface and disrupt the project boat. Think about that for a second. Even the tiniest little change, it sends ripples across your entire project ecosystem. It rocks the boat. And as project managers, we simply cannot plan reality away. When that rock drops, we need a solid way to stabilize things. So before we go any further, we really need to nail down what an issue actually is. Simply put, an issue is a current threat that might mess with one or more of your project objectives. It is a materialized problem happening right now. It's completely different from a risk. A risk is a potential future event, something that only might happen. An issue? It is literally sitting right on your desk right now, demanding your immediate attention. Now, you might be wondering, what's the difference between issue management and change management? It's a huge distinction. Issue management is all about firefighting the current active problems just to keep your team moving forward today. Change management, on the other hand, is the formal process of altering your project's established baseline, stuff like the budget, the scope, or the schedule. Sure, an issue might eventually force a change request, but they need completely different handling right out of the gate. Which brings us to part 2, mastering the issue log. Tracking and resolving threats. If you want to keep active threats from completely derailing your team, the issue log is your absolute best friend. Notice how everything is structured. We use a unique ID, we categorize the problem, and we clearly describe what's going wrong. We rank the impact and urgency to figure out what's on fire the most. But here's the real magic. It assigns clear ownership to a specific person with a firm due date. No more hallway conversations, no more "I thought you were handling that." This ensures absolutely nothing falls through the cracks. Okay, so you've logged the issue, now what? We tackle it with a really structured 4-step problem-solving approach. Step 1, identify all the affected areas. Step 2, ask yourself, what happens if we literally do nothing? Step 3, propose some actions and figure out exactly what they're going to cost in time and resources. And step 4, rate the overall severity of the problem. This basically forces us to fully wrap our heads around the issue before we just start blindly throwing solutions at it. But, what happens when an issue is so massive, it forces us to fundamentally change our actual project baseline. That brings us to part 3, integrated change control, protecting the project baseline. Listen, if you take nothing else away from this, remember this cardinal rule. No ad hoc changes are made to the plan deliverable. Honestly, enforcing this rule is what separates a successful project from total chaos. If a stakeholder comes up to you and says, "Hey, can we just make this one tiny little change?" your answer always has to be, submit a formal change request. Uncontrolled changes are, without a doubt, the absolute enemy of project success. This is exactly where Integrated Change Control, or ICC, swoops in as our main defense mechanism. It's the process of identifying, evaluating, and managing changes throughout the project's entire life cycle to make sure we're still hitting our main objectives. Basically, ICC is how we guarantee that before we say yes to any change, we know for a fact that the value it brings is way higher than the massive disruption it's going to cause. This change workflow is incredibly deliberate by design. First, a request gets identified and captured by the project office. Then it goes into a deep review and assessment phase. After that, an action is proposed, which, by the way, might even mean ripping open and revising contracts. Ultimately, the whole thing goes up to a steering committee or change control board for the final stamp of approval. It's a highly controlled pipeline, all built to protect the project's integrity. Right at the heart of that workflow is the Change Control Board, or CCB. These are the folks doing the heavy lifting. They review and evaluate the requests, run deep impact analyses, and ultimately make the call to approve or reject. They also make sure everything is thoroughly documented and communicated back down to the team. In short, the CCB is your project's bouncer. They keep scope creep out and keep the project perfectly aligned with the organization's goals.
Which leads us perfectly into part 4, assessing risks and impacts, evaluating the ripple effect.
So, how does the CCB actually figure out the impact? Well, a quick glance isn't going to cut it. We have to look at how a change messes with all of our interconnected constraints. It's kind of like a baby's mobile hanging over a crib. You pull on one little piece and the whole entire structure swings wildly. Are there scope additions? Is this going to cause a schedule delay? What about the budget? Does it mess with our quality standards? Are we going to have to pull staff off other critical tasks? And crucially, does it introduce brand new risks? You have to look at the whole picture. And as part of that assessment, you've got to actively push back to avoid the dreaded scope creep. That's when you allow all these tiny, repetitive, incremental adjustments without ever checking the schedule or the budget. Honestly, it's a huge red flag that your process is broken. You know the old saying, the customer's always right? Well, throw that out the window here. You literally have to play devil's advocate on every single change request. Make them justify the business value before you even think about touching that baseline.
Because here is the harsh reality. Making a decision on a change request inherently introduces new risks. It doesn't matter if you implement a change or reject it. Either way, you are fundamentally altering the risk profile of your project. The key is that these new risks have to be immediately fed back into your standard risk management processes. You have to evaluate them and watch them like a hawk so they don't blow up your objectives down the line.
All right, last stop, part 5, managing stakeholder expectations, the human element of change. Managing the actual humans involved in a project is just as critical as tracking all the technical data, and it is a continuous, never-ending process. You start with your inputs, like your engagement plan and your issue logs. Then you lean on your tools, your interpersonal skills, a healthy dose of political awareness, and your conflict resolution tactics. All of that transforms your raw data into actual outputs, like updated schedules and fully addressed concerns, keeping everybody on the same page as things evolve. Applying some solid communication best practices here is exactly how you overcome people's natural resistance to change. We need to be proactive, identify changes with stakeholders early, get sponsor approval before anyone starts doing the work, and communicate what's happening fast. We also want to find solutions that keep multiple parties happy and use a strict time-based resolution model so issues don't just sit there gathering dust. Deliver on your commitments and you build the trust you need to survive disruptions. At the end of the day, an uncommunicated change is just a recipe for frustration, confusion, and totally eroded confidence. Being transparent, even when you're delivering awful news about a delayed schedule or a busted budget, is what builds trust, and trust is what gets you through project turbulence successfully. When the team and the stakeholders actually know what is happening and why, they stop being roadblocks and start being partners in finding a solution. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative question to chew on. Is your project driving the change, or is the change driving your project? If you can truly master your issue logs and your change control processes, I promise you, you will always stay in the driver's seat. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep building great things.